The room went silent not because of anger, but because of the weight of a sentence that no one expected to hear spoken aloud. In a glass-walled boardroom overlooking a rain-soaked American city, a powerful CEO lowered her voice and asked for something no balance sheet could measure, and the single father standing across from her answered in a way that cracked something open in everyone present. That moment did not begin there. It began years earlier, in the quiet exhaustion of a man who had learned how to survive on little sleep, smaller paychecks, and a heart stretched thin by love and loss. Before the story unfolds, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who keep going when life is unfair, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. Michael Harper lived on the edge of Cedar Falls, Iowa, in a modest duplex that smelled of coffee, laundry soap, and the faint sweetness of baby lotion. He was 36, with tired eyes that still held gentleness, and shoulders that carried more than his frame suggested. 5 years earlier, his wife, Rachel, had died from complications after childbirth, leaving him with a newborn son named Caleb and a grief so heavy it bent time itself. Michael learned fatherhood not through celebration but through survival. He memorized feeding schedules between night shifts, folded tiny clothes with hands still smelling of engine oil, and whispered prayers over a crib when the house felt too empty to bear. He worked as a maintenance supervisor for a regional tech firm, fixing what others ignored, staying late without being asked, saying yes when his body wanted to say no. The company's headquarters stood downtown, all steel and glass, a world far removed from Michael's quiet mornings packing lunches and braiding stories together to help his son sleep. The firm had been struggling, and a new CEO had arrived like a sudden change in weather. Her name was Victoria Langston, a name spoken with awe and caution in the same breath. She had built companies, saved others, and carried herself with a calm authority that made rooms listen. What few knew was that behind her composed presence lived a private ache. Years of medical treatments had taken away her chance to have a child, and the grief of that loss had no neat place to land. She buried herself in work, believing purpose could replace longing, until even success began to feel hollow. Michael and Victoria's paths crossed slowly. She noticed him because he noticed details others missed. A flickering light replaced before a meeting, a broken door fixed without blame, a quiet courtesy offered when stress made people sharp. Over months, she learned he was a single father not from gossip, but from the way he declined late dinners and how he smiled at photos on his phone during breaks. He learned she was more than a title from the way she stayed late too, staring out at the city as if listening for something. Their conversations were brief and practical, but something human grew in those exchanges, a mutual respect shaped by shared solitude. The day that changed everything arrived after a company crisis. A major client pulled out, layoffs loomed, and fear pressed into every hallway. Michael was called into the executive boardroom to explain a systems failure he had already worked through the night to fix. He stood there, aware of his scuffed shoes against polished floors, while executives argued numbers and consequences. Then the room quieted as Victoria spoke, not about profit or blame, but about people. She acknowledged Michael's dedication, his consistency, and the fact that without his work, the damage would have been far worse. As the meeting wound down and others filed out, she asked him to stay. What followed was not business. It was a confession carried on a breath. She spoke of her longing to be a mother, of years spent hoping, of the emptiness that success could not fill. She said she had watched Michael with his son, admired his steadiness, and believed he embodied the kind of care she wished to give a child. Then she made the request that froze the air, asking him to give her a baby in a way that bypassed contracts and logic, reaching straight for the heart. No one else remained in the room, but the walls themselves seemed to listen. Michael felt the world tilt. His mind raced with fear, anger, compassion, and the instinct to protect what little family he had left. He thought of Rachel's laughter, of the promise he made at her bedside to keep their son safe, of every night he had rocked Caleb through tears and fevers. He answered slowly, his voice steady not because he felt calm, but because he refused to let pain speak for him. He told Victoria that a child was not a solution to loneliness, not a gift to be exchanged, not a way to heal wounds without scars. He explained that his son was not something he could share to fill another's emptiness, and that love demanded patience, not desperation. His words were not cruel, but they were firm, grounded in the truth that children are lives, not remedies. The impact of his response shattered the unspoken expectations in the room. Victoria did not react with anger. Instead, she sat down, the strength she carried finally allowed to rest. Tears came quietly, not of rejection, but of recognition. In that moment, she understood that what she admired in Michael was not just his kindness, but his boundaries, his understanding of responsibility, and his refusal to let grief make choices for him. She thanked him, not for agreeing, but for honoring the seriousness of what she had asked. Life did not transform overnight, but it shifted. Victoria began to seek healing outside of work, confronting the grief she had buried under ambition. Michael was offered a promotion, not as a favor, but as acknowledgement of his value. More importantly, the culture of the company changed. Policies became more humane, parents were supported, and people felt seen. Over time, Victoria pursued adoption through proper channels, committing herself to the long, uncertain process with humility. Michael continued raising Caleb, now with a lighter load, teaching him that love is measured not by what you give away, but by what you protect. Years later, at a company picnic in a park in Minnesota, laughter echoed under open skies. Victoria stood watching a little girl chase bubbles, her daughter now, legally and lovingly hers. Michael sat nearby, Caleb leaning against him, both of them content in a way that had been hard-won. Their lives had intersected not to fill each other's voids, but to remind one another of truth. That sometimes the most compassionate answer is no, and sometimes integrity changes more lives than agreement ever could. If this story touched your heart, if it made you pause, reflect, or feel something real, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. Speech balloon special request: comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Because in a world chasing quick fixes, this story stands as a reminder that real love is patient, real kindness has boundaries, and real courage speaks the truth even when it shakes the room.